It's actually hard to sing unison for a guy and a woman to sing unison and sound that good. Do you? Because you
We
really have to.
practice.
You have to track each other. Well, yeah, I was going to ask. I mean, do
No,
you
I
actually
mean
look at each other and practice
yeah,
that?
when we started off, we used to. I used to have this old like little art studio in a huge building, a small little space, and we used to practice there, and then we kind of get complaints from people because it was too noisy. And then there were some carpenters that we were friends with downstairs, and they built this little cupboard for us, like a soundproof cupboard, and that we would sit in and
I couldn't
not
stand
annoy
that.
Very, very
anybody.
kind of them.
But
Yeah.
what it meant was we would sort of sit quite really close proximity, opposite each other, staring at each other, and you sort of will these kind of psychic ghosts out of each other when
Yeah.
we would be coming up with stream of consciousness lyrics while we were singing, and the other person would, kind of start sooner or later start second guessing and singing the same thing, and there was quite a power in that.
I'm quite serious about it. Actually, it sounds, it's almost like siblings, who have that ability. Siblings have it genetically where they can,
Yeah.
even if they're of different sexes, can sing with each other like that. And you guys have that ability. And on a song like that, the whole song is unison, right? But it sounds good. It doesn't always sound good when two people are singing together like that, who are a guy and a girl. You're also, I've seen you play a few times now in concert. You're sort of known for your loud, kinetic shows, Alison. Does it give you a different insight into the song, or do you tap into something different when you're playing a pared down acoustic version like that?
Yeah, I guess it's a totally different thing. I mean, it's a different thing when there's not hundreds of people standing in front of you too, and it's a different thing when it's 11 o'clock in the morning, and every kind of environment calls for something different. But the songs, when we do them acoustic, that's kind of the way they were born in the first place. We tend to write that way, so they're familiar to me in that sense as well.
Do you feel like it sounds like it might be a ridiculous question, but do you feel like a different person when you're sitting, playing that song acoustically than you would be sort of vamping on stage?
No, but there's a different adrenaline level. I mean, it's different. I think as soon as you kind of electrify anything, it changes everything. You have to raise your own volume, like on so many levels. Your kind of energy level and your noise level and everything to match it. But
It's just on a simple level. It's different when you sing acoustically and you can hear the actual
song.
sound of your voice.
Right.
You can hear the sound that's coming out of your mouth. Whereas when you're playing live, you kind of learn this that you're singing into. You're hearing back something that's not. It's like a replica of your voice.
Right.
It's hard to
And all the
explain it.
songs are born acoustically? You write them all like that, like we just heard it?
not all of them.
I mean,
but
we try and
a lot of
not
them.
really have a formula for writing songs, because that seems to have been the thing that's kept us hungry for writing, is not having a formula, I think.
Okay, but this is a perfect segue. I mean, Blood Pressures is a very different record, as a lot of people have said, from your last Midnight Boom, in the sense that was more pared down and angular, you might argue. This record, you include elements that you don't normally. You got piano, you got mellotron, gospel singers at one point, more harmonies. Did you have a clear idea of where you wanted to go with this album from the start?
Not from the start, but never really from the start. It's the songs formulate, and then there's two different processes for me. There's songwriting and then there's recording, and they're really different things. A song can start off as a simple folk ballad, and it can end up as a sort of brutal noisescape. And you can, especially when there's two people, in a four-piece, in a way, you've got four parts of a machine that fit together, and they fit together in the same way every time, really. With the two-piece, the possibilities are endless, because there's, you're more restricted in a way, so that it kind of opens it up for me.
You have the songs before you go in. So you're not Talking Heads when they used to go and sort of jam in the studio and have songs.
Well, we've done that.
We've done that.
We've done
yeah.
that. We did that on No Wow, and we've done that on plenty of songs on all our records, actually.
Yeah.
A song like on Midnight Boom, What New York Used to Be, that was a jam, and Mexico. We kind of do jam. but we're not a jam band.
Right. But you also did say though that you wanted this album to be a loud guitar record.
Yeah,
Was that a reaction to the last record?
partly. Partly, I'd kind of had a revelation with MPC 60 drum machine, and I became obsessed with it. I could easily. I mean, I love to smoke, and I like to drink,
Right.
and I like to talk, and when I've got an MPC 60 in front of me, I can easily go 10 hours without doing any of those things, you know. And so
Really?
yeah.
This is
and-
a way for people to kick
that's
their
co-
addictions.
That's really why. That's really why Midnight Boom had so little guitar on it, because I spent so much time programming the MPC 60 and getting into this rhythm thing. There wasn't much left. I'd kind of occasionally go and go burp on the guitar, you know. But I loved it. It was really liberating. And then I kind of panicked after touring that for a year and a half. Sort of panicked that I wasn't a guitarist anymore.
Alison, lyrically speaking, this does feel like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it feels like a darker record. And there's some definite anger and attitude in these songs. You said you're not moved by happy songs the same way you are by those that come from a more intense emotional place. Why is that?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I like happy songs, but I mean, I don't know. You'd have to tell me. You'd have to give me examples of songs.
Do you feel like more fertile as a writer when you're when bad things are happening to you? I mean, people do say that.
Yeah,
right?
I think so. I mean, I think then you have endless material, you know. If you're not out there kind of living your life and doing stuff and getting into trouble and having problems, you don't really have anything to write about. I always think, yeah, you need material.
So you're more creative when you're less creative when you're happy. It's kind of like it's like a
Maybe. I
career
mean,
liability to
it
be
might just
happy.
be a different kind of creativity, you know. I might be up to other things, you know. I mean, I don't know, but I feel like bad things don't have to happen. I have a wealth of stuff to use. I feel like I don't know where it comes from, but I don't know.
You have a back catalog of
I have a
crap
back catalog
things
of
that have
crap,
happened to
yeah.
you. Yeah, you can draw on. And Jamie, you said you're not as prolific with lyrics as Alison.
Yeah.
So
I mean, without there's no competition.
so what fuels the writing when it does happen for you?
Fear
Of what?
of
writing.
of deadlines, of having too many instrumentals on the records, that sort of thing.
Good to know it's coming from an organic place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I just find it's important to really lay yourself on the line when you're writing lyrics, and to be vulnerable and honest. Those are the most. Those are for me, the lyrics that have the most impact. And as my life bumbles along in various ways, I kind of find it harder to want to lay myself out on the line. You know, I find it harder to be that vulnerable because I feel attacked in that way quite often in my daily life.
It's funny because I think of most of the big hit songs right now in the world, whether it's like you know, that that like the
Yeah.
Party All Night song or
Yeah.
whatever. Those are not written from vulnerable, lay yourself on the line kind of places, right?
No.
Do you lament the kind of lyrical stuff that populates the pop music airwaves?
No, not at all. I think it's always been like that from, you know, I want to hold your hand, you know, it's all kind of...
That's a vulnerable place. I want to hold your hand. You
Yeah,
might say
I mean,
no.
I think it's always, you know, rock and roll's always thrived on cliches and, you know, idiotic love cliches. And sometimes, when the smoke clears, they're actually the ones that have the most impact. Neil Young writes, he's a fantastic lyricist. You read his lyrics and they're kind of actually always skirting around cliches, and it's the linking words that he uses that stop it being a cliche. It's
Yeah.
really clever.
I found that
really,
with
really
John
clever.
Lennon too. If you read it on paper, it just seems
Yeah.
so simple.
Yeah.
But brilliant. Alison, last time we talked, it was in the context of your work with Jack White in the Dead Weather. You guys were here together, and you recorded 2 albums between the Last Kills record and this one. How did that experience inform or influence the approach you took with this record back with Jamie?
Gosh, I mean it made the Kills fresh again. I mean, it made me really excited about it. I guess when you go away and you do something else and you come back, you have a whole new kind of vitality, you know. I don't know, like in one way or other, what it did. It's hard to say. I don't know what I brought. I don't know. I just think the experience was a really good one. It was a learning experience, you know, to do something in a different kind of musical setup like that. It was creatively so much different. And I don't know. I hope it made me a better musician, you know, but I don't know exactly what.
You guys probably have like a way of relating to each other and doing things that is almost instinctual at this point, given the amount of time you would have spent together. Did you miss that when you were working with other people?
Well, it's not like I didn't see Jamie the whole time. I saw him quite a bit. But yeah, but I think that was the challenge, you know. It's like Jamie and I have been working and writing music together for over 10 years. So you kind of, it's that moment, I guess, when you go and do something else that you do completely appreciate it. But also it's exciting to do something that feels unnatural.
In terms of your collaboration, do you see yourself as playing particular roles? There's something that you bring and there's something that Jamie brings, and do you sort of fall into those categories with each song?
Well, it definitely changes. I mean, I think it used to be quite simple. I had strengths and weaknesses, and Alison had strengths and weaknesses, and they happened to be the opposite to each other. So we'd kind of fill in each other's gaps. I think as you go on 10 years later, you hopefully get stronger at things. And it means that, you know, Alison's become much, much, much better songwriter than when she started off. You know, and it's kind of, some of her songs don't need completing anymore where they used to, you know. So there's, you know, it's I think both sides of our songwriting have got much stronger. So we've kind of, it's a good thing.
Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever creatively have cultural differences ever come in to this? I mean, have you ever noticed that you bring different things to a certain extent because of the British and the American thing?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I have to say, because I explore things. You know, with English literature, you know, it kind of gets me much more than American literature these days. You know, because that's American. You know, the way that American authors write. It's not the way I grew up, you know. It has impact, but it's not the way I grew up.
Who are the British writers that inspire you? Or what's an example of
you? Robert Graves, Evelyn Waugh, you know. Yeah.
Those
the
two.
list has ended.
There's two very powerful writers in England.
I mean, I like a lot of like Stephen Burkoff is amazing. You know, I like the he kind of uses this, turns this Cockney rhyming slang into a sort of poetry that I like a lot.
And that's different from you, Alison? Is that way back in terms of the cultural differences?
I think it's the same. It's weird, when I moved to England when I was 20, I was just like, I'm over America. I can't deal with it anymore. I wanna go, you know, I wanna go learn about all the English stuff. And then as you get older, you kind of go back a little bit. And I think, like, in the last couple of years, I mean, we said it to each other when we went in to do this record, that suddenly I'd never been so American, he'd never been so English. And we're like, what's going on? But it was a great thing, because it kind of was like the first record when we were like that, you know. Kind of mixes it up a bit.
What does that mean?
I mean,
what did it mean?
It just meant so many things on so many levels, you know.
It means. I mean, I have a phrase for it, that I call "skulls on the highway," right? Which is it's a kind of, that's my stab at saying when things get a little. There's too many Americanisms, you know. It's like it just says nothing about my life. Skulls on the highway, you know, and that's that. It's that sort of, sometimes it heads in that.
Would you say skulls on the motorway?
I would.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say skulls on the motorway. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's the difference.
You know,
That says a lot more about your life.
You say tomato, for God's sake. I say potato.
You guys are more popular now, it seems like, than you've ever been. And a big reason for that has got to be the live performances. I was surprised to hear you say recently, Alison, that you said it's never comfortable for you on stage.
Oh no, that's not true.
You always find it terrifying. That's not true.
Terrifying is the wrong word, and comfort is completely. Who cares? You know, I'm not trying to be comfortable. I think I'm always there's a certain amount of like nerves and adrenaline that happen to you before you go on stage. It happens to me, and I think it happens to Jamie, where you kind of feel so excited and sort of sick and kind of, you know, really questioning whether you can do it, if you know how to do it. And that's so weird because you do it every night, but you still wonder every single night before you go on stage if you know. And that's never gone away. And I think that's part of the reason that we love it so much, because no matter what, it's always a challenge, you know.
Yeah.
Tony Bennett says he was here a couple months ago saying he gets butterflies before you
Every
you know,
time.
he's
And it
still-
doesn't,
Yeah.
to me, it doesn't really matter the size of the show either. It's just there's a transition. I think there's a thing that happens. There's a transition between your sort of off-stage self and your on-stage self, and you become your sort of super self when you go on stage. And
Right.
and there has to be a change in you. You know, it
But
has
have-
to be
but-
this kind of werewolf thing going on, and that's the fear for me.
But having said that, on the werewolf thing, but having said that, you two are both so powerful on stage. You know, there are people who will say, ultimately, they're more comfortable with themselves in that super persona on stage than they are
I
when they're
am.
off the stage. You are.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not comfortable. I still don't really like that word,
Okay.
but I feel
More
I feel great. I feel like there's a weird line. For some reason, it's like my space. I just know what I'm doing. Once I'm there, I know what I'm doing. And
I think
it's like this kind of, I don't know, it's this arena to completely express these things and to let this music do this to you and take you for a ride. And for some reason, it's so, I find it so wonderful. I love it so much better than just anywhere else. You know, I don't know.
you feel that way, Jamie?
I think it's a different thing, isn't it? You're presenting yourself, presenting a part of you in the way you want to on stage, and there is a real comfort in that. You don't have to interact with anybody. You don't have to deal with, with the things that when you're off stage kind of make you the way you are. It's how you react to other people, where you don't have to have. It's an enormous ego trip being on stage, And of course you feel comfortable. It takes ego to get up there and do it,
It's also artificial. I mean, it's sort of bizarre on some level, right? People pay money to come and watch you come on stage and do stuff for an hour, an hour and a half. Just that the whole
Sounds
construction.
pornographic.
I did the way I said it, didn't it?
Pornographic.
Do stuff. They pay you to do
To
stuff
come
for an
on
hour.
stage. All right. Speaking of which, you two have this platonic relationship, but it's always interesting, like researching the Kills, and then I'm sure you know this. It always comes up that you have this sexually charged energy between the two of you. Is that some? First of all, how do you feel about the fact that that seems to be a focus of a lot of the media attention on you? And is that something that you had to develop, or has that always been there with you two, and it come out of the music?
It's always been completely unknown to us and inexplicable and not deliberate. But I think a lot of those, nerves and stuff do a lot. People's actions on stage get interpreted in a certain way that they probably don't mean. And I think I'm happy that there's a sort of sexual voodoo going on, because that's rock. That's the essence of rock and roll. I mean, it's sort of primitive and it's sexual, and it was an old black term for sex, bump and grind, rock and roll.
Right.
That's what it should have, some sex involved in it. But
Do you like the sexual voodoo focus, Alison?
Do I like that focus as
Yeah.
a topic, as a theme?
Yeah. Well,
do
well,
you
it seems
like
to-
sexual voodoo?
It seems to be a theme when
As
people
much
talk
as
about
I
it.
do.
it. I mean, it's just, I think if you put a guy and a girl on stage, and
They're going to have sex.
yeah, on stage, and that's
They
what you
cannot
paid
help
for.
themselves.
So
If people are paying for them to
People
come
pay
on stage,
$40. All
that's what you're going to get.
So yeah,
Well, let me ask you one more thing about the live show, because you're also this stylish duo. I mean, both of you. You seem comfortable in terms of with
thank you.
fashion. You're both visual artists. Alison, you've modeled. Jamie, you're married to a supermodel. Do you conceptualize style as part of the Kills presentation?
I mean, when I was a kid, we never, no bands came to my town. It was right in the middle of nowhere. Nobody came. It was a boring old place to live. There's no radio show that you could listen to hear good music. So I used to go to the record store and look through records and buy records on the strength of the artwork or what the band looked like. You know, that was my first thing, was to be drawn to the way a band looked. And I think it's on one hand you can say that, you know, fashion is a superficial idiot's game, but I think that's kind of idiotic to say that, because it's in everything. It helped me through school pick the people that were going to bully me or weren't going to bully me. And it's not just about like looking cool, it's about identifying. And if you don't get that, then you haven't been through it. Like, you know, you haven't been through that thing of choosing a side to be on.
Yeah.
Also, I wonder if it's a bit of a British thing too. You know,
I don't think so.
Maybe.
No,
maybe.
well,
No
there is a
way.
strand in American rock though, where it's like, just be yourself. You know, you wear a torn
And-
T-shirt or something, and you know,
I always
that's-
hated that.
I'm
I
not
always
into
thought
that
I
at
could never.
all.
I
I
hate
think
that. You
it's
can't when
wrong.
you can't tell the band
completely
from the
unnecessary.
roadies.
yeah.
Which one's the roadie?
But
which
they would
one's
argue
the
they're keeping it
guitar player?
real. It's just about the music, man, right?
There's enough people keeping it real already.
If you
don't need
keep
to-
it real, then don't get up on stage and do a performance, because that is not real. It's a performance.
I don't know. I think it's our job to inspire people. You know, I think it's our responsibility. And if you call yourself an artist or a creative person, why let that side down? That's really strange to me. I think that's all part of a bigger picture. And yeah,
You guys do really seem harmonious. Do you? How often do you disagree?
all the time.
You do? Doesn't seem like it.
Not all the time. That's
Not
not
all the
very
time,
nice.
but maybe like once a day.
A disagreement. I see. You're disagreeing about the disagreement.
It's true, actually.